Hey everybody, this is Phil Donlon, movie star. You might know me from my screen debut, 1979's CBS TV movie of the week, Death Car on the Freeway, starring Peter Graves, Dinah Shore, and my good buddy, George Hamilton. You know, it's funny, we were on set. He said to me, you know, you're about as handsome as Charles Durning. Anywho, you're listening to my favorite thing that flies through the airwaves, Inspirado Projecto.
Thank you, Phil Donlon, for your extraordinary endorsement of Inspirado Projecto podcast. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. This is your host, CEC. We of course, are on part 2 of our interview with David J Diaz. This time, we're going to get a little deeper into the Andy Kaufman business. I will provide, of course, the link about anything we talk about in this episode. I will supply that in the description section, and also the link to the first part of this, where we talk all about his music career, photography, etc., and so forth. Very exciting stuff. By the way, if you are a fan of Andy Kaufman, check out my new album. It's a mini song EP, 4 songs. It's a mini concept album. It's called Andy Kaufman is Alive. You can find it on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and all kinds of places. So thank you for listening to Inspirado Projecto. Oh, by the way, today's April 11th, and this interview was on April 9th. Thank you. Well, and the thing, too, I frequently think about this. Well, a few different things. Number one, I think about what if Andy Kaufman actually has wanted people to find him, where it's this hide-and-seek thing where, you know, he's giving clues through Steven, and he's hiding things in different comment sections of different message boards or websites, and he actually is like, okay, who's daring enough to find these clues, follow the clues, and actually meet with me? So there's that aspect. And then there's the other aspect of, okay, let's say, for instance, if I did follow these clues and I did go to some of these addresses that I've heard he has apparently lived at, what then? You know, what then? What do I just show up to the door and I go, hey, guess what? You know, I found you. You know, I wouldn't want the guy to flip out and go, oh no, now you're going to broadcast this out to the world, because that's definitely something that I would not do. I would not let anybody know that I found this guy. I think collaborating with him and you know, interviewing him and finding out what have you been doing all these years would be far more important and hold far more value than me being known as the guy who found Andy Kaufman. You know, I mean, how would you feel about that? Like, for instance, like if you were placed in that position where someone goes, okay, David, here is the address of Andy Kaufman. This is where it's at. It's a little town in Ohio or something. You are one of very few people who have this address. You can do what you want with it. You can visit it. You know, what do you think you would do?
I mean, I think it's more similar to what we're talking about the questions with Stephen. I think curiosity would definitely take over in every sense of the word. And I think, but at the same time, you wouldn't be respectful, you know, because at the end of the day, like, I deal, or have dealt rather in the past, with a lot of people who have had a lot of sensitive information or something that's happened to them, like ordeals and stuff. And you have to respect the person, you know, if they don't want to talk about it, you don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like all these opportunities have always arisen. I always thought at the back of my mind, like when Letterman did his last show on CBS back in 2015.
Yeah.
I always thought at the back of my mind, I actually thought he would appear there.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
And then I thought, like just recently, 2 years ago, he got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I thought maybe he might appear there. Or
yes.
Maybe he was there. I don't know. And same thing with the Hollywood Walk of Fame. They even left a chair for him just in case he showed up. You know, and it's like, and I remember a friend of mine who, knowing that I'm a big Andy Kaufman fan, went to WrestleMania, which is obviously the night after the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. Obviously, they have this fan fest thing, and obviously there was like an exhibition of Andy Kaufman memorabilia, which had this Intergender Championship and a few other things. And I remember him sending me a picture, and it's a picture where it says Andy Kaufman, 1949 to 1984, and a question mark.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And it's like if this is Michael and Carol that know this, you know, and that they actually, if it was real that he did die in 1984, you would be like, oh, you got the question mark, you know? And
right.
That's what I would do, at least. I would find it odd. You know, it's like if I go to the cemetery right now and I go and see my grandmother and I see, okay, 1925 to 1998, and a question mark at the end. You know, it's weird.
Yes. Yes.
But I think in that sense, going back to the whole phenomenon of it all, I think Michael maybe may have revealed the truth, but has had to, I want to say, like, get the truck and put it in reverse and say, oh, it's not true, it's just like one of Andy's gags, because that's what Andy was known for, you know? And that's what the documentary dives deep into, as you well know. And it's like, I remember, I think it was Jane Carvey that said it. I can't remember where I read it or where he said it, but I remember him saying, all roads lead to Kaufman.
Yes.
And I think it was Jane Carvey. I could be, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I just remember being fascinated by that. I'm like, what do they mean, you know? And like, similar to the last Letterman and the Hall of Fame, I even thought he was going to be at the SNL 50.
Me too. Me too.
And I'm like, you know, what better time, you know? And because they didn't even do what they did on the 40th, where they had like the tribute to those that have passed away. And I'm like, you know what better time, you know? But who is to say he wasn't there, you know? Maybe Lon Michaels knows the truth. I don't know.
Well, you know, he does have that famous letter that was given to him at that restaurant that he read on CNN, that he read on the documentary that Chris Maloney did.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that he read the same bits of information in it, but there's more in that letter. There's more in that letter. And I'm curious what more is in that letter. What else is in it? And maybe some of that stuff will be answered, because there's going to be another, believe it or not, another Andy Kaufman documentary that's coming out. Because I did that, you know, so through the years I've made 4 songs about Andy Kaufman, and I, in honor of this documentary, thank you very much, coming out, I thought, you know, this is a perfect opportunity for me to put these together onto a little EP, a mini concept album, get it out there. And so I used some of these free press release sites, and I was contacted by Al Parinello, and Al Parinello is the guy who worked in the coffee shop who gave Andy Kaufman his first opportunity to perform, you know, sort of in that sort of public setting, you know, when he was going to college out there and everything. So Al has been friends with him for a long time, and I guess has helped produce some of his stuff. Al Parinello contacted me. He found me through, I guess, one of these free press release sites, and he goes, "What's this project all about?" And I told him, and I said, "I saw the documentary. I thought for sure you would be in it." And he goes, "Oh, I was interviewed for a different documentary that's going to be coming out." And I said, "Well, I was surprised I didn't see Michael or his sister or anyone else in this new documentary." He goes, "Well, Michael, you know, preferred a different kind of take on his brother's life." And I was like, okay, that's fair. So there's that one, and that's the one that David Letterman is going to be in, Michael and Carol, of course, and
maybe,
you know,
Little Wendy's in this one.
I hope so. I really hope Little Wendy is in this one.
I was too surprised that she wasn't in the. And thank you very much, if I'm honest with you.
Me too. Me too.
I mean, if somebody knows a lot of things, I'm not saying the faking his death thing or anything about Andy as a person. she's definitely one of the people that would know.
She is. She, I had the opportunity when I was interviewed for yet another documentary about Andy Kaufman called Kaufman Lives, which I hope someday that comes out. Who knows if that's just buried or not, but I had the pleasure of being there at Cantor's with little Wendy. She said she and Andy would go there. And so I had the joy of sitting there in on that interview.
Isn't Cantor's where? No, it's Sambo's, isn't it? I think I got them confused. I thought it was the same place where they did the Breakfast with Blassie.
Breakfast with Blassie. Yeah, Breakfast with Sambo's. That one was Sambo's. And apparently that one doesn't. That restaurant doesn't exist anymore because I was looking around for it. But that's where he had the Breakfast with Blassie one, and I would love to visit that restaurant. But Cantor's is like a deli place that's, I think it's off Fairfax or something. And I had the joy of sitting there and listening to her tell these stories about Andy, and it was just so exciting to hear her, tell these things. And she's so sweet and just lights up when she talks about Andy, and she's probably got so many stories that nobody has ever heard of before. And I hope that
I think more than anything, that's really, at least from what I took away from the documentary, I think, and I mentioned this to Pagani, and I mentioned this to a few other people, it always amazes me, though, how relevant Andy continues to be. I think he's more relevant now because of all these things that have been happening. Not just the documentary, obviously he got the Hollywood Walk of Fame star, he got the W Hall of Fame thing, and it's like there's so many things that have happened, and it just amazes me how relevant he continues to be in every sense of the word. And I remember reading, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld that mentioned it as well in an interview, where he said that if Michael Richards hadn't played Kramer, Andy Kaufman would have been the right person to do it.
Wow, that is so true.
That completely blew my mind. And I think Andy would have enjoyed working with Jerry. And there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, it was more of a Jewish comedy thing, so maybe they would have related a lot more to it. But I couldn't even imagine Andy in a George Costanza kind of role, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it works, and I think...
Yeah.
It's incredible. That's the best way to sum it up.
Well, it seems like anyone who hung out with him, they just light up when they talk about him. Even Bob Pagani, he's had so many great. He had his Slycraft hour. If you've probably seen that footage where Andy talks in a Russian accent. This is the only time he's ever talked in a Russian accent on something, and it was the Slycraft hour that Bob Pagani was putting on. And the funny thing was that Bob Pagani sent off a letter, because at this point Andy was kind of on the downhill stuff, because people were not liking his wrestling and all that jazz. So Bob was like, you know what, I would love to have Andy Kaufman on the Slycraft hour. So he sends off a letter. He sends off a letter that very day, and to Shapiro or something, who was manager or something. So that very day he sends off this letter. He goes in to the cable access network to he decides to go in a little bit early. And apparently before his show there was some sort of like karate show or something that was going to happen. And Andy, what Bob didn't know was that the people at the karate show had apparently months before asked if Andy would want to be on their show, and he never got back to them. So Andy just apparently showed up out of nowhere on that same exact day that Bob sent off the letter to Andy, on the exact same day. And Bob shows up to the public access place. Andy is there, and he goes, "So Andy, you got my letter? How'd you get my letter already? I just sent it off in the mail today." Andy goes, "I didn't get your letter." He goes, "I'm here to be on this karate show, but they said they don't have room for me because I didn't get back to them in time. And Bob goes, well, this is perfect. You could be on my show. And I mean, so he was able to shuffle him in there. And I thought that is so cosmically awesome. I mean, it's just so...
This is Robert from Twin Peaks, and you're listening to Inspirado Projecto. Got a light?
It's Andy's, I want to say, ease or readiness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think his eagerness to please in a good way is what drove him to be successful in every sense of the word. I mean, that's one thing I think when I remember Stanley mentioning it once in an interview where about the girl in Chicago. You know the story, don't you?
Oh yeah, the girl who had cancer. He would go around to the hospitals, right?
Yeah, and that story should be in anything related to Andy.
Well, go ahead, tell that story, because there are probably some people who haven't heard it.
I just remember reading about it in I think it was one of the books, and then I remember Stanley talking about it in an interview many, many years ago. And I remember him just saying about this girl that was dying pretty much, and I don't want to say on her deathbed because I don't want to say the wrong word. But I mean, that she was just a big Andy Kaufman fan, and she sent him a letter, and he just went to Chicago. He drove overnight, I think, and he went to Chicago to meet her for her to get her wish, you know? And that's, I think, the side of Andy that's never been seen, or nothing that's been done on Andy has been documented in that, I think.
It's so true. Shame, you know? That's so true. All the unseen stuff.
I mean, it's the same thing with the Carnegie Hall show, for example. I was obviously, if you watch Man on the Moon, or even if you watch the actual presentation that was released on VHS, that's not even the full thing, for example. And we all know that it's mentioned in the documentary where it continues 12 hours later. I think it was the Staten Island Ferry, and that I would love to know if that's recorded too, you know?
Oh, gosh, I know. How cool would that be? Oh, that'd be so cool.
I think Alex Braverman, because his parents worked on it, I don't know if you know that. And
his family works where?
His family, I think it was his parents, worked on the Carnegie Hall show.
Oh.
I think they were I think they were producers or something. I don't know the full story, because I remember just reading about it recently. But he probably has access to the entire thing, and I love with the way the technology is for that to get enhanced and remastered and get released properly, like with everything intact, you know.
Oh my gosh! Well, and also, I've talked with you online about that footage that Tony Danza. I hope he still has it. It's Super 8mm footage of the day that Tony Clifton showed up to the set with all those little barking robot dogs. To the taxi set, and Tony Clifton gets kicked out and everything, and he's got that footage. I'm surprised that wasn't put into the documentary.
We heard the audio at least.
Man.
I mean, that audio I had never heard. I don't know where that came from, but it blew my mind, to put it that way.
I mean, there was some interview that I had seen with him, because there are a few of those interviews out there with the taxi people through the years. Judd Hirsch, Mary Lou Henner. Mary Lou Henner has, and you probably know about this, she's got the memory of an elephant. I mean, she can go to a specific date,
I've seen that.
Specific time. She knows what you were wearing, what kind of sandwich you were eating, what you guys were talking about, everything.
I remember reading on this, and I remember watching a video of it later, where I think she was asked what she was doing on the day of the moon landing, which was, I believe, July 20th or July 22nd, 1969. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, I remember they asked her what she was doing, and then she said, "Oh, I was losing my virginity in the shower."
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
And I can't remember who the host was. Said, "Well, at least we know what Neil Armstrong wasn't doing that night."
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious! Oh my god, that's hilarious.
But I dare say, when I think we talk about the Taxi Cast, and we can talk about them all day. I think equally and individually they've had careers of legends, you know. But I mean, I think when they think about the entire cast, I think Mary Lou is the only one that keeps Andy's torch alive in a positive light.
Yeah.
I mean, she always she went to the ceremony in Hollywood.
Yeah.
She's always been involved in documentaries to talk about him, and she's always opened up. I mean, not Tony Danza, Judd Hirsch has been doing it recently as well. But Mary Lou's always kept that torch alive. You know, she's been in almost everything, at least that I've seen of Andy, she's always been involved in.
Yeah, she holds him in a positive light, and I mean, I was surprised in that documentary. Thank you very much of the different, you know, like the different friends that he had who came out and talked about him. The TM, there's some TM lady, and she, you know, you're like, wait a second. So these are sort of like pseudo girlfriends of Andy's. That nobody knew about. I remember Miss Ruby Tuesday talking about, they give her a different name in the documentary, but, you know, she's the Red Snapper. She's the mud wrestler. She was talking about how in between Taxi, when Taxi wasn't filming, Andy would sneak away to her place, you know, and it was like his little hideaway because nobody knew who she was. Nobody knew where he was. And so he couldn't be bothered by, you know, managers or anybody.
Yeah.
And he'd just sneak away.
There's also a story, I think it was Joe Hirsch that said it once, or Tony Danza, I could be mistaken, where he was meditating in his dressing room or something, and obviously because he would get into the zone and zone out completely and be in another world altogether. And I remember that they kept knocking on the door and he wouldn't answer the door. And I remember eventually they successfully opened the door. And he was smoking at the fact that they actually had to do that to get to him.
Oh my gosh!
Because he knew that he was pissing them off.
Oh my gosh!
And I can't remember where it was that I read that, but I remember being fascinated as to how committed he was to the whole thing.
I love it. It's just so fun to know that Andy was such a shapeshifter and willing to play with people's realities and just harmless fun. I mean, Lynn has, when I was reading about that, you know, Andy always wanted to have a comedy album like Steve Martin or any of those guys. Yep. And so that's where he started, you know, making with his micro cassette recordings. And there's over like 80 hours or something. So it's surprising that the you know, Lynn and these guys, they sat there and listened to all this audio and came down to, you know, 1 hour's worth of an album material. I mean, just imagine all of those hours that are out there. There could be multitudes of these albums. And
I mean, someone who has similar tapes, and he actually mentioned this in an interview, is Billy Crystal and Robin Williams.
Wow.
Like I remember there was one about when Ronald Reagan died, and Billy Crystal was talking about it, and then Robin calls in and talking, asked Ronald Reagan as the funeral was even happening on TV, and it's like, you know, because he saw the area code and he knew it was him, and it was like that sort of thing. But with Andy, it's very hard, I think, it must have been very hard to condense that into just, well, I done, was it 12 tracks? I don't remember what
I think so.
And it must have been very hard to condense, but how do you condense them? Do you add them or put them into an album by legitimacy or by how hilarious they were or how serious they were? I mean, the whole idea that it includes the fact that he wanted to fake his death in it,
yes,
says it all to me.
Yes, and I thought that was quite interesting because all those years, people were like, what, did Andy actually talk about that, about faking his death? And all of a sudden, years and years and years and years later, out comes Andy and his grandmother, and there's that golden nugget on there where he and Bob, you know, Zamuda are talking about him faking his death, and it's going, see? Like, look at what's going on here. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I think it's more... As the years have gone by, more than anything, I think it's more... It's like he's putting on a show, but you're not allowed to see who the person yet. And then it's like the intro to the documentary, I think, does that beautifully in that sense.
Yeah.
Because it's him talking as to what he wants a documentary to look like.
That's true.
Literally, that's what it is. And it blew my mind because they got it to a T as to what they used.
Yes.
Because I remember when they put the end credits, it was the end credits to the musical Taxi episode, it's probably one of my all-time favorite Taxi episodes. And they played that beautifully because it's showing you a side of Andy that you didn't know.
Yeah.
Because I think to some elements, he did enjoy Taxi for certain things. I think maybe that episode was fun for him to film. Obviously, the Vic Ferrari episodes are the best.
Oh,
we
yeah.
all know that.
Those are great.
Just the quote on the Ferrari is the best one ever, in my opinion. You should see me on tight corners or something like that.
Oh, that's great.
That blew my mind. And how he did that, he blew me away. But it's the writing, and he made it work. It was him playing Clifton, that's what it was. It's Tony Clifton without the costume.
Totally.
That's what Vic Ferrari is.
Totally.
Talk to me, walk with me.
Yeah.
I mean, when he says that, that's it.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, yes, he was very limited as to what he could do because he didn't really have power to what storylines he wanted of the show, apart from those 4 guaranteed slots for Tony Clifton to guest appear on the show, guest on the show. But I mean, if they would have given him that, and maybe if Tony would have appeared on Taxi eventually, I think eventually Taxi could have lasted maybe. It was on for 5 seasons only, which is a surprise to many. But it could have gone on maybe for another 2 more. And that would have been, maybe it would have kept him alive or sane in every sense of the word, I think.
Well, they had just such a good rapport on that show. I mean, they had such a good rapport. They just, bouncing off each other. And it's funny, my girlfriend and I were because Yachtley Crew was playing out in Vegas over the weekend at the Palms. And so before sound checks and stuff like that, we'll watch TV, and the Golden Girls were on there. And I forgot just how awesome that TV show is. And just how witty and smartly written, and that's the same thing with Taxi. Taxi is just so smartly written. It is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh, there's so many layers going on.
Man. Just that cast as well. When you look at it from A to Z, it's wow. It's a who's who of Hollywood, if you think about it.
They were so good. Yeah, Tony Danza.
Randall Flowers, Judd Hirsch. Danny DeVito, obviously.
Yeah, and Danny DeVito.
Jeff Conaway.
Oh yeah, that's right. And
Rhea Perlman was on that as well before she married
Danny
DeVito, and before she went on Cheers too.
Oh, well, and Christopher Lloyd did such a great job as like that, that
great.
Drunken dude.
Jim, Reverend Jim.
Oh my gosh.
He made that role. I think I just say one of his best roles, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, it's so fascinating. I mean, especially with today's streaming platforms. I mean, who would have thought that they would have brought back Full House? Who would have thought they would have brought back Roseanne? Who would have thought they would have brought back some of these shows? I'm sure they could totally do a Taxi. I mean, all of them I think are still alive, aren't they? Except for Andy.
Let me think. Well, Jeff Conaway, he passed away too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Jeff as well, who used to be in the cage with Danny.
Oh.
He passed away too.
Oh. Man, it was just
I think Harold Kane is the only one that I think, from what I know at least, was the only one that went to his funeral.
Oh. Man.
So, but I would have loved maybe a one-off episode would be great. I think it could be done.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm glad that Andy is still celebrated, and he's still, I mean, he's inspired me in so many ways. I know that for sure.
Same here. No doubt.
his commitment to character and his commitment to curiosity and imagination, and I mean, you know, when you can.
I think it's more. I think with Andy, more, it will always be intriguing, and I think that, like we all know, that was his goal and aim, was more. I need to provoke and let them believe that they're being provoked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more. I guess it's like I remember, like I would try to explain it to my son, at least to a certain extent. And I was watching when he was on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and he did the old McDonald's with 4 people in the crowd.
Oh yeah.
And I remember telling him and asking him, "Can you tell me why people find this funny?" He goes, "Yes." And then he went on and to explain to me why he thought, or maybe why he felt it was funny. And I was like, bingo.
That is too cool. You know, and it's so funny because when you think about it, Andy just had such a youthful heart. He never grew up. He just,
no.
You know, and it makes sense that why so many kids would get a kick out of what he's doing. I mean, I'll tell you, when they show that footage, and I love the Uncle Andy's Funhouse.
Oh, I love that show. The pilot was great.
Oh, it's so good. And when he sits there with Howdy Doody, it makes me cry watching his interaction with Howdy Doody.
Yeah, I cried when I was doing the documentary this time too. Oh
my gosh, I can't help but cry. It's so honest. It is so sincere. It looks like he's about to cry.
Yeah, I think of when you look back and you watch Man in the Moon, I think it's the only true scene that they got right.
Yeah.
Of anything that obviously the wrestling stuff was done very well too.
Yeah.
And obviously the Mighty Mouse and SNL and everything else. But that scene in particular, I think, was done beautifully in Man in the Moon, and I think they got it to a T.
Yeah, they did do a good job with that. They did do a good job.
It gets a lot of hate. Obviously, it's always going to get a lot of hate because obviously true life stories always do, because they'll always never be 100% accurate, as Stanley rightfully put it, because they wanted to show the positive side of Andy. They never wanted to focus on the negative. But I mean, on this day and age, the fact that they did this documentary and the fact that it had been in work in progress for so long as well, I mean, speaks volumes, I think, because at the end of the day, it could be another maybe 20, 30 documentaries on Andy, but I think this one is the only one that's actually touched upon Andy the person, as opposed to Andy the performer.
You know what? That's a really good way of putting it. I'm very curious to see what happens with the David Letterman one. It's his production company that actually is putting that one together. That Michael and Carol are going to be a part of. So who knows what kind of interesting home movies that he has that we've never ever seen before.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember this is on my review. This is how he described it. Is on the documentary. At least the documentary captures Kaufman by not only showcasing his most famous bits, but also delving into his motivations and the artistic nature of his work. It emphasizes that Kaufman's comedy wasn't just about making people laugh, but about creating something that provoked, fascinated, and even bewildered his audiences.
You wrote such a great review for that, and thank you for giving me a preview of that before it hit the streets, and also thank you for mentioning me in it, dude. I'm honored to be included in the same, I don't know, in anything that has to do with Andy Kaufman. It's just funny to be someone who researches it.
All roads lead to Kaufman, like I said before.
All roads do lead to Kaufman. That's for sure.
I mean, I think it's very. I think just the mere fact that, like I told you about within the conversation that we had when I got the link to it and everything else, I think I'm still going to be blown away at the mere fact that of all the journalists in the world that I've been able to get picked to write about it,
dude.
You know, and to get sent a link, and a private link rather, not just any link, a private link, to get access to it and watch it in advance. It's like, what have I done to achieve this, you know? But it's like, it was more persistence than anything else, I dare say. But I mean, I remember, because I'm like I told you, remember, I want to try and get it worldwide and publish it worldwide and see where it can go. And I just told my editor and like at the magazine, I just told Jean that I've got this, and it actually won Best Documentary at the Venice Film Festival. I know it's not local, but I would love to write about it. And she just gave me her blessing.
I love that.
You know? And the irony is, and maybe it's a bit of a link, or maybe it's synonymous, or maybe a bit, I want to say, silly, but her last name is actually King.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
This is Blythe Baines, and you're listening to Inspirado Projecto.
Are you feeling curious about Andy Kaufman lately and want to learn more? The new mini album, Andy Kaufman is Alive, is a perfect companion piece to your Andy Kaufman vision quest, created over the course of 20 years while investigating the mystery of Andy Kaufman faking his death. These 4 melodic songs are sure to give you even more questions. Andy Kaufman is Alive by Eric Clendenin is now on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and other favorite streaming sites.
King. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I still stand by saying that King is, it's not a name. I think it means something. And I always stand by saying that it means Kaufman is not gone.
That is a great way of putting it. Oh my gosh. I wish that original AndyKaufmanLives.com page was still up, showing all that convoluted information. Man, thank God archive.org and the Wayback Machine exists. Thank God for that existence, man, because, oh my gosh, there's no way to accurately describe all the crazy stuff that you know, you and I went through this stuff in real time as it was unfolding, and it's tricky to try to describe that to someone else.
Yeah. I mean, it's never going to be, how can I explain? It's never going to be 100% accurate, like everything else. But at the same time, it's always going to be accurate for the ones that lived it to say, okay, this is what happened, or this is what he was saying, or what's been said. And it's like, okay, take my word for it, or do you want to read on it? If you read on it, you get lost. That's the honest truth.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
there's no way around it. You'll always get lost.
Yeah. And luckily, some of those links within that website will lead to some of those other websites. Some of those are still, you know, within the archive.org umbrella, so to speak. It'll still lead to some of those things. And I always have a tricky time whenever I want to share a link of AK Lives, you know, from the Wayback Machine. It's always tricky to try to find, like, okay, which page out of all these screenshots that it saved, which page is the one that I want to share with people? Because at one point it said, "Hello, I'm Enrique Presley." At another point it said, "Hi, I'm Steve Rocco." At another time it said, "I am King," like you said. At one point it showed, remember when it showed the Book of Illusion up there, where it showed the different chapters?
Yeah.
Remember that? Where it said, like, you know, at this chapter, the meaning of life. At this chapter, you know, King will reveal himself to these people. And then there's something about golden tickets. Remember that?
Yeah. I remember, I think Jack mentioned that he got one.
Oh my gosh. Incredible. Oh my gosh.
He was flown over to the House of Blues event, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, he was. And it was so crazy because, like, you thought that it was like this whole organization, Puzzlementary Productions. You thought it was like, you know, there was Enrique Presley, there was Claire Chanel, there was Julie Pellegrini or something like that. Who the heck else were there?
Photo Claire, wasn't it? That was Claire Chanel.
Oh yeah, Photo Claire. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and remember when so there were those pictures where it said that people went to go look at the address at Emerald Way, which I thought was interesting because that's like Wizard of Oz type stuff. Emerald Way, that was in Indiana. That was an apartment, which I later found out Stephen Maddox used to live at, and he has, and his wife Diane, she would play Photo Claire, and gosh, there was just so much mystery involved. There was just so much mystery.
I mean, I will always be fascinated by the whole thing in like not just Photo Claire and everything else, but I remember when, I think it was shortly after that, when people were saying whether it's true or whether it's not, and people were saying, oh, because if he is out there, like, there's probably going to be like videos eventually and everything else. And I remember that one of the first videos I saw related to the phenomena was the Puzzlementary video, and it's this clown sat on a chair.
Oh yeah.
And I always thought to myself, that's definitely Andy. If it's real, that's Andy.
Dude.
Or is it Maddox? I don't know.
I used to think the same thing too. And
then I thought the grand reveal would come through there. And then they played the whole Howard Stern clip where somebody had sent a letter in to Howard Stern.
Oh yeah.
And they mentioned, and that clip always fascinated me because I remember it was very short, but then they actually uploaded the full thing eventually, and they actually said that. I remember it said, since then I've had the opportunity to meet the man, and then it just cut off.
Oh my gosh.
It's nuts, that rabbit hole.
Yeah, because he would say, he said something like, and there Andy was sitting at a picnic table or something like that, right? He was like,
sitting at the picnic table was Andy Kaufman.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh.
And I remember it's that, maybe Howard Stern knows the truth for all I know, but I mean, it's this phenomenon, I think, and I think maybe I'm hoping at least the upcoming documentary that David Letterman's, I think it's Worldwide Pants, isn't it?
Yeah, Worldwide Pants, that's the name of it, yeah.
And I believe that if eventually that gets released, which it will, I think it might even dive more into the phenomena about everything that happened at the Andy Kaufman Awards, everything that happened on CNN. I think it could come to light there because it's Michael saying what's happened.
Oh boy. Well, because that is one of the things that Stephen Maddox has said, is that part of the agreement that Andy had with Michael was that after Stanley dies, then Michael was supposed to get the grave exhumed to prove that he was not in that grave, or that it wasn't his body. And so that's something that, that would definitely prove it right there. If they exhumed the grave like they did. Remember in the news when they exhumed Salvador Dali's grave because that girl claimed that she was possibly the daughter? Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
So that's,
It can happen. It's not entirely impossible.
Yeah.
I think I remember when this is where it quotes maybe that there's something more to it. When he reads the letter on the Chris Maloney documentary,
mm-hmm.
he mentions Michael, obviously he mentions Carol, and he mentioned his dad, but he doesn't mention his mum. And the reason being his mum died after him of a stroke.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Interesting.
I mean, I can't even remember when she died. I think it was in the 80s too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, man. Wow, man. Well, and that's the other thing too. Linda Mitchell, Stephen Maddox talks about how Linda Mitchell was a part of Andy switching the identities with the Nathan McCoy guy. Linda Mitchell has, it's like, where is she at? Where is she at? And I was surprised. There's this clip that Maddox will post through some of the X accounts.
On the autopsy episode, isn't it?
Yeah, it was so there was this autopsy thing about Andy Kaufman, and
I actually watched that on network TV maybe about a year ago. I was blown away.
Yeah, the fact it's like, wait a second, there's Linda Mitchell. Like, this is interesting. I think she needs to be interviewed for these kinds of things. We need to find her, and maybe that's why it's so hard to get a hold of her, because she doesn't want to crack. You know what I mean? Maybe she doesn't want to give up the truth.
So looking up on IMDb, Janice Kaufman passed away on January 11th, 1989.
Oh my gosh. Interesting. Huh.
So it's like incredible.
So she passed away in 1989. Huh. That's interesting. Wow,
Incredible.
man. Wow. So you're thinking, because this is what I'm imagining right now. So since Janice passed away after, let's just play with this idea. So let's say Andy Kaufman fakes his death, and then he writes, and then somewhere, because he gives the letter to Michael in 1999. Isn't that what it was?
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's, 10 years after his mom dies. So that's interesting that, like you're saying, yeah, in the letter, he doesn't mention the mom. Tell Dad, tell Carol, that I love them very much. It makes sense that he wouldn't mention the mom if the mom is gone already. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That is incredible.
Golden nuggets.
Whoa.
But anyway, we could talk shop, I think, for hours on this.
Yeah, we could.
Two, maybe?
Jeez, dude, we could talk for hours. Are there any other things that you'd like to let the viewers know about yourself? Any particular, actually, maybe websites or where people can see your photos, anything where people can be led to you?
DJD Photography, that's about it. I mean, right now it's all very limited because I'm obviously doing my content writing, and that gets uploaded on a magazine, which is Community Insight in Gibraltar, which I'll send you the link to, because you can actually check out every issue on issue.com. So, and except April, which is not available yet, but it will be in the next few days. But pretty much that's where I'm at, and where rabbit holes will continue to exist, and long live the rabbit hole. That's what I'm going to say.
Absolutely. So please send me those links, because I'll put those into the description for the podcast so people can click on them.
Will do. Sounds great by me. But I think let's do a part 2, but touching more about the documentary, because I think we dived more as to what we liked about it, but we didn't really dive into certain chapters. I think there's a lot of chapters I think that really need a lot of thorough analysis. That makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I will leave you with this, and I think the line, and the best line on the documentary, at least in my mind, is by our good friend Bob Perry. Anyway, says everything in life is professional wrestling, and I absolutely love that.
I love that too. And if we use that as a filter, it makes total sense what's going on everywhere, anywhere right now.
I mean, I don't want to dive into politics, because thankfully I live in a place where, like I mentioned before, where government ministers are within reach, and where, yes, things can be bad, but you know that if you open WhatsApp like I am right now, I could just message our chief minister, who is right now in London for treaty talks with the United Kingdom and the European Union, and I could just message them and say good luck, and they'll probably get a reply back. And that doesn't happen in a lot of places. I'm sure it does to a personal level, but to also being so small, it's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, dude, that you're able to do that. That is so cool.
I mean, it's a very, what I remember, it was during the election, Gibraltar has annual local elections every 4 years, which is similar to everywhere else. But obviously, chief ministers don't have just like it's not like in the States, they can only do 8 years. They can be chief minister for X amount of years. Our current chief minister, Fabian Picardo, has been the chief minister now for almost 14 years, for example. And when I remember shortly after the election, his son is in my son's school here. So I remember going to the school because there was something for the parents to be involved in, and I remember just going down. And he was actually behind me, as if nothing, the most normal thing on the planet. And so it should be, obviously, because he is also human. And I just remember talking, and I said, we practically spoke for like an hour. And he's like, this is the most we've spoken since I was elected. I'm like, whose fault is it? Yours or mine? In a good way, in a positive way, to make it.
It's great.
He's like, yeah, and like, I can blame myself, but because we need to realize even before he was chief minister, he was my friend too. So, and I remember the night he was he won, that he was elected in 2011. Obviously, results leak out just before. You know, you get the atmosphere, you get calls from people that are down there when the results are about to be said, and oh, so and so is winning, and so has won. And I remember sending him a message, and I told him, "Congratulations, Chief." That's a joke. And the first thing he replies back, he goes, "Thanks, but remember, I'll always be Fabian to you." And that's enough for me.
That is too cool. Oh, that is too cool. That is too cool. Wow, man.
Obviously, that's where we can dive into the whole Stephen Maddox phenomenon. Because Gibraltar is related, and it's on The Running Man. It was even shown on network TV a few weeks ago. It's like,
wait. So Gibraltar is in the Running Man movie? That's where they go?
It is. It's at the end. There's Malaga, which is literally an hour away, which is in Spain.
What?
There's San Roque, which is literally 15 minutes away. And Gibraltar is at the final scene.
Oh my gosh.
And a little tidbit too, my great-grandfather's business, at least a boss of my great-grandfather's
No.
business.
Oh my gosh, dude.
My mom's cousin pointed it out. I hadn't realized until I watched it.
Oh, so you've been unexpectedly, intrinsically connected to the Andy Kaufman Lives phenomenon through, oh my God, this is incredible. This is cool to hear.
I mean, Maddox actually tweeted it out a few weeks ago as well.
Oh my gosh. That is too cool, dude. Wow.
Everything happens for a reason, they say.
Absolutely. It's a very, very cosmic world. Well, dude, David, this was so great to talk to you and just geek out with you about this stuff. I get so excited, and it's just great to learn more about you. I'm gonna send me your link to your review for thank you very much. Any of those links, even your Flickr account, if you still keep that active. Any of those things.
I do.
Okay, good. All those things, and I'll put them into the description for you.
Great stuff.
All right, brother. Well, you have a great day. Say hello to the family for me.
It's 9:15 right now.
Oh my,
so
dude.
It's just getting dark.
This is crazy. It's 12:15 p.m. right now. This is nuts, dude. Oh my gosh. Well,
time is only in our imagination. Time doesn't exist. I remember reading about that years ago, and I remember thinking, you know what? It's actually quite accurate.
It is very accurate. It's very accurate. Time is just in our mind.
We'll dive into that, I think, another time.
Man. Well, you have a great day, and I'll talk to you. I'll see you online.
See you. Thanks a lot again.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye. Wowzers. You know, Dave is such a cool guy, and I just remembered, I just had this epiphany that I actually had interviewed him before on January 14th, 2019. The name of the episode is called Yachtley Gibraltar. You'll hear some behind-the-scenes stuff with Yachtley Crew, and then I interview David J Diaz. I will put that link into the description here. I'm also going to put some links in here about David, some of the great stuff he's done. There was a time where he talked. It's kind of like a TED Talk. It's called Gib Talks, and the title of it is From Passion to Profession. And I got such a kick out of seeing that, him talking about his journey. I love watching people in their evolution throughout the years, and it's been such a joy seeing David, his evolution throughout the years. You can find him on Instagram at D_J_D_photography. I'm going to put that Instagram page, his Flickr account, and his thank you very much review. Thank you very much. We talked about that during this episode. That's the documentary about Andy Kaufman. Also, I'm going to put a link. I'm going to put that link for The Running Man, which we talked about, where Stephen Maddox first showed up in there. Phil Donlon, thank you so much. My old buddy from high school. I was in quite a few improv groups with him. He came on here. He did a great promo for us. If you've seen him lately, he's on Chicago Fire. He plays the character Lieutenant Stephen Vale. You'll see him on there. He's also on the Power Book 5 Force as a character named Simon McDougal. He's the producer of Hot Shot, a documentary about firefighters. These guys are the best of the best. Also, Rob Broski did a wonderful promo. He's the world's greatest Abraham Lincoln impersonator. He's also in Twin Peaks. I'm going to put his website in the description section. Also, thank you to Blythe Baines, singer-songwriter. She's very cosmic. I've interviewed her in the past. I'm going to put her Spotify in the description section. And I'm going to put a link to my mini album called Andy Kaufman is Alive. That is on Spotify. I'm going to put that into the description section as well. And a link to a whole bunch of Andy Kaufman stuff, which I think you might get a kick out of. Thank you for listening to Inspirado Projecto.